In 1972, workers renovating an abandoned military hospital in Kentucky reported hearing footsteps in sealed corridors. Decades later, the site became known worldwide as Waverly Hills Sanatorium. Ghost hunters blamed spirits. Former employees pointed somewhere darker. They claimed certain hauntings began only after classified government research teams visited the property. But why were federal vehicles documented there years after closure? Throughout the Cold War, the United States government funded secret psychological experiments under programs like MK Ultra. Thousands of pages were later uncovered through congressional hearings and declassified records. The experiments involved drugs, sensory deprivation, hypnosis, and behavioral manipulation. Historians confirmed many records were destroyed intentionally in 1973. The missing files left one terrifying question unanswered. Where were those experiments actually conducted? In Montreal, Canada, the Allen Memorial Institute became ground zero for one of the most disturbing psychological experiments ever exposed publicly. Psychiatrist Donald Ewan Cameron subjected patients to prolonged isolation, drug-induced sleep, and repeated audio messages. Survivors described losing memories and identities completely. Years later, some researchers noticed eerie similarities between reported hauntings and documented sensory trauma symptoms. Was fear itself being engineered? The stories surrounding abandoned asylums follow similar patterns. Visitors report voices, paranoia, nausea, sudden panic, and overwhelming dread. Paranormal investigators often describe electromagnetic disturbances inside these buildings. But intelligence documents from the Cold War reveal governments researched electromagnetic frequencies extensively. Officials explored whether certain signals could alter human perception and emotional states. Camp Hero in Montauk, New York, became infamous after conspiracy theories linked it to secret military experiments involving psychological warfare and mind control. The government officially described the site as a radar station. Yet locals reported strange noises, missing persons, and unusual electrical activity for years. No evidence confirms the more extreme claims. Still, investigators remain disturbed by what official documents refuse to explain fully. During the 1950s, both American and Soviet intelligence agencies investigated methods of influencing behavior through environmental stress. Declassified reports confirmed experiments involving isolation chambers, sleep deprivation, and chemical exposure. Many tests occurred inside military facilities, later abandoned quietly. Some of those locations are now considered deeply haunted. Witnesses describe hearing screams and machinery decades after operations officially ended. At Eastern State Penitentiary in Philadelphia, guards and visitors consistently report shadow figures, whispers, and sudden temperature drops. Historians confirm the prison pioneered extreme solitary confinement in the 19th century. Prisoners often lost their sanity in silence and darkness. Modern psychologists recognize sensory deprivation as profoundly damaging to the human brain. Did trauma permanently alter the atmosphere there? Or is something else still lingering? In 1975, the Church Committee exposed illegal intelligence activities conducted by the CIA, FBI, and NSA. The investigation confirmed covert surveillance, secret testing, and unauthorized operations targeting civilians. Public trust collapsed overnight. Researchers revisiting allegedly haunted government properties began questioning whether paranormal legends sometimes emerged to conceal unethical experiments. Was fear useful? The abandoned corridors of Denver's old Stapleton Airport inspired rumors long before demolition began. Employees reported hearing voices through disconnected communication systems late at night. Former workers later discovered portions of the facility were leased temporarily to defense contractors during the Cold War. Records remain incomplete. Investigators searching archived agreements encountered heavily redacted pages. In England, RAF Bentwaters became associated with both UFO reports and unexplained psychological episodes among military personnel stationed nearby. The famous Rendlesham Forest incident remains controversial decades later. Some witnesses described electromagnetic interference and strange cognitive effects. Defense researchers during that era openly studied the neurological impact of radar exposure. Survivors of unethical medical experiments often describe fragmented memories, distorted time perception, and recurring auditory hallucinations years later. Trauma specialists say these symptoms can persist for life. Paranormal investigators unknowingly document similar experiences inside abandoned hospitals and military sites repeatedly. Some scientists argue environmental triggers can reactivate buried fear responses. In West Virginia, the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum attracts ghost hunters from around the world. Visitors report hearing cries from empty rooms and feeling watched constantly. Historical records confirm overcrowding, isolation, and invasive treatments occurred there for decades. During the Cold War, nearby institutions reportedly participated in federally funded behavioral research programs. Yet, key administrative documents disappeared before investigators arrived. Who removed them, and why? Soviet archives released after the Cold War confirmed secret experiments involving sensory isolation, interrogation techniques, and psychological endurance testing. Some operations occurred inside remote facilities, hidden from public maps entirely. Witnesses later described buildings abandoned almost overnight. Local residents living nearby reported bizarre sounds and electrical disturbances for years afterward. Paranormal rumors spread rapidly. In Massachusetts, Danvers State Hospital became notorious for reports of apparitions, screams, and overwhelming dread long after closure. The hospital once performed controversial psychiatric procedures, including electroshock therapy and lobotomies. Researchers studying environmental psychology later discovered certain architectural designs can amplify fear responses naturally. Still, former staff members privately admitted sections of the building were avoided completely. During Project MKUltra, intelligence officials explored whether trauma could fracture personality structures and increase suggestibility. Congressional investigations later confirmed unwitting civilians were exposed to dangerous substances without consent. Historians believe many records vanished permanently. Paranormal researchers investigating former research locations sometimes report disorientation, paranoia, and emotional instability themselves. In Prague, abandoned Soviet military hospitals became infamous among urban explorers after repeated reports of phantom voices and unexplained radio interference. Historians confirmed intelligence units once occupied portions of these compounds during the Cold War. Electrical systems remained active years after abandonment, mysteriously. Visitors claimed hearing coded transmissions echoing through corridors. Authorities dismissed the stories. Government agencies have repeatedly researched the relationship between fear and human behavior. Documents from military psychology programs examine stress conditioning, interrogation resistance, and panic responses extensively. Scientists understood fear alters memory, judgment, and perception dramatically. Paranormal investigators entering allegedly haunted sites often experience those same symptoms intensely. The Winchester Mystery House in California predates modern intelligence programs entirely. Yet its endless hallways and confusing architecture inspired theories about psychological manipulation decades later. Researchers studying disorientation environments compared certain maze-like structures to interrogation research facilities. Visitors commonly report anxiety and spatial confusion inside the mansion. Some historians argue architecture alone can create haunting experiences. In Japan, the abandoned Hashima Island became associated with ghost stories after decades of industrial suffering and forced labor during wartime. Survivors documented brutal working conditions and psychological trauma among workers trapped underground. Modern visitors describe hearing voices and machinery despite complete silence. Trauma researchers suggest environments saturated with extreme human suffering can influence perception profoundly. At Pennhurst State School in Pennsylvania, reports of apparitions emerged long before paranormal television crews arrived. Investigations confirmed horrifying neglect, abuse, and overcrowding throughout the institution's history. Former residents described isolation rooms and experimental behavioral treatments openly. Decades later, unexplained noises and sightings persist throughout the property. Skeptics blame suggestion and atmosphere. During the Cold War, military scientists became increasingly interested in infrasound, low-frequency vibrations capable of affecting human emotions physically. Research demonstrated certain frequencies could trigger anxiety, dread, nausea, and hallucination-like sensations under specific conditions. Paranormal investigators later detected unusual sound frequencies inside several allegedly haunted facilities. In Romania's Hoia Baciu forest, visitors report panic attacks, memory gaps, and feelings of being watched constantly. Paranormal theories exploded online. Yet historians discovered nearby military activity during the communist era, including restricted research operations hidden from public records. Scientists acknowledge environmental factors can affect cognition severely in isolated conditions. Official investigations into unethical experimentation rarely provide complete answers. Records vanish, witnesses contradict each other. Agencies deny involvement until evidence becomes impossible to ignore publicly. Historians studying haunted government sites often encounter the same pattern repeatedly. Incomplete archives, missing blueprints, and sealed documents. Conspiracy theories grow naturally inside those gaps. But are people chasing ghosts? In 1995, the CIA formally acknowledged elements of Project MK Ultra after years of public pressure and legal battles. Survivors testified about memory loss, manipulation, and severe psychological trauma. Many victims never received full explanations regarding what happened to them. Investigators revisiting abandoned facilities connected to those programs reported strange physical symptoms unexpectedly. Some later refused returning. None could explain precisely what frightened them most inside. The underground tunnels beneath Portland's old Shanghai district inspired stories of kidnappings and hauntings for generations. Historians debate how many legends were exaggerated over time. Yet law enforcement records confirm organized trafficking and violence occurred there historically. Researchers studying traumatic environments argue fear narratives often attach themselves to real suffering eventually. But why do witnesses still report hearing chains? Military researchers studying psychological resilience frequently used isolated environments to measure stress responses under extreme conditions. Arctic stations, underground bunkers, and abandoned compounds became ideal testing grounds. Participants often developed paranoia and auditory disturbances after prolonged exposure. Modern ghost hunters entering similar environments report comparable experiences constantly. In South Korea, Ganjiam Psychiatric Hospital became infamous online after reports of screams, moving objects, and unexplained disappearances circulated widely. Authorities denied many claims outright. Historians later confirmed the hospital closed after allegations involving patient abuse and unsafe conditions. Urban explorers entering the property frequently describe overwhelming panic almost immediately. Some fled without reaching the upper floors. During the 20th century, governments worldwide invested heavily in psychological warfare research. Manuals detailed methods for destabilizing emotions, increasing compliance, and controlling perception under stress. Historians now recognize fear itself as a strategic weapon. Paranormal researchers unknowingly walk into locations shaped by decades of trauma, secrecy, and manipulation. Alcatraz Island remains one of America's most famous haunted locations. Former inmates and guards described hearing screams, metal clanging, and unexplained voices for decades. Historians confirm extreme isolation and violence inside the prison. Some cells were intentionally designed to maximize sensory deprivation psychologically. Visitors today still report overwhelming dread in certain corridors. Was the haunting supernatural, or simply the echo of engineered human suffering? Researchers studying environmental trauma note that architecture, lighting, sound frequencies, and isolation can alter perception dramatically. Intelligence agencies understood these principles long before the public did. Certain abandoned facilities, now labeled haunted, were once designed specifically to influence emotional states intentionally. Witnesses entering those spaces experience fear immediately, without understanding why. In Russia, abandoned radar installations and underground bunkers continue attracting explorers despite strict warnings from authorities. Witnesses report hearing mechanical noises and radio chatter inside structures disconnected from power completely. Historians confirm many sites housed classified operations during the Soviet era. Paranormal explanations spread online rapidly. Survivors of institutional abuse frequently describe buildings themselves as feeling alive. Trauma specialists explain that environments connected to extreme fear become psychologically charged through memory and association. Paranormal investigators interpret the same sensations differently. The overlap between trauma science and haunting reports continues growing disturbingly close. Government secrecy creates fertile ground for paranormal speculation naturally. When agencies classify operations, destroy records, and deny involvement repeatedly, public trust erodes completely. Historians studying alleged haunted facilities encounter the same barriers investigators faced, uncovering MK Ultra decades earlier. Missing documents become part of the mystery itself. Sometimes the absence of evidence feels almost as disturbing as evidence hidden intentionally from public view. Across abandoned hospitals, military bunkers, forests, and prisons, one pattern appears repeatedly. Extreme isolation, psychological distress, unethical experimentation, suppressed records, witnesses describing nearly identical sensations decades apart. Skeptics blame coincidence and fear. Believers insist something darker remains behind. Yet the deeper investigators dig into these locations, the less supernatural the stories begin sounding, and the more disturbingly human they become. Officially, no government has admitted creating haunted locations intentionally. Historians caution against unsupported conclusions. Yet documented experiments proved agencies explored methods of manipulating fear, perception, and behavior extensively throughout the 20th century. Many records vanished forever. Many sites remain sealed. And inside abandoned corridors once tied to classified programs, people still report hearing things that should not exist anymore.